Nebraska going to Ohio State. Big Noon, the shoe. Gonna be a movie of an atmosphere with Big Noon being there. This game, preseason, had a lot more juice because you're looking at the schedule for Nebraska. You're like, hey now, Dylan Rhule is who we think he is. Maybe Nebraska shows up there undefeated. Now, the thing we didn't account for was the Fighting Kurt Cignetti's being an absolute wagon. So Nebraska, they're rolling with 2 losses. It is what it is. Ohio State's favored by 25.5 points. I saw that, and I scoffed at it at first, admittedly, but then I remembered that Indiana did darn near 50-piece Nebraska. So I don't think Nebraska is necessarily that much behind Indiana. I think that game went how it went, and it got away from Nebraska. We'll talk about Nebraska in a second, but let's start with Ohio State. College football sickos, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. Game predictions like this one, instant analysis, reactions to just madness across the college football landscape. Want you subscribed, and we appreciate you for being subscribed. Also want to make sure you know the hard count is brought to you by our friends over at Prize Picks. When you play $5 in lineups, I did not say win, just when you play $5 in lineups, though we expect to win, you get $50 in promo funds, again, when you use code HARDCOUNT. So thank you for using that code. Thank you for being subscribed. Now back to the prediction. They're off the bye, okay? Off the bye, the game before, they lost to Oregon. And, like any heartbreak, man, you give yourself some time. You watch the Matthew McConaughey movies. You eat some junk food. You take some time to clear the system. Now, I don't think Ohio State is doing either of those two things, probably just hitting the film room and hitting the reset button on their week. But with that being said, this is the chance now for them to bounce back. And at the same exact time, with them playing Oregon 2 weeks ago now, there's a chance for a little bit of that, okay, how are we feeling? Are we still feeling the weight of that loss? Are we still feeling the weight of that whole situation? Or are we able to hit the reset, remind ourselves we are, in fact, one of, if not the best team in college football from a roster perspective, and we're good to go? If you don't take Nebraska seriously now, you look at the record, look at the Indiana game, they got some pieces now that can make it a little bit intriguing. For Nebraska, I said last week, infamously on this show, Indiana and Nebraska had Matt Rhule special written all over it. That was not the case. Hand up on me, that was not the case. Now, however, I do not believe that Matt Rhule will allow this team to have one bad showing turn into 2 bad showings. Not telling you Nebraska's going to win the football game, but I am saying that I don't think this is a team that's going to carry the Indiana game with them into Columbus. Now, the beautiful part about this for Nebraska, there's no expectations, man. You roll in here 7-0, probably game days there with Big Noon. Everyone's watching this football game. It is probably the matchup of the weekend. It's 2 ranked teams. It's not the case. All right, you got 2 losses. You're not happy to have 2 losses, but I do think in some ways you're like, all right, let's just go let it rip a little bit here. Let's empty the clip. We got house money. 25.5-point dogs, cool. Can't take anything with us out of this game. This is our best opponent we have on the schedule. Let's go let it freaking rip. And I think in this spot now, I know there's been some questions around the social media sphere and YouTube sphere around Dylan Rhule and how he looked against Indiana from a physical perspective. Talking to people that I know that are close to Nebraska, they said, hey, he's good to go. So we'll see how he looks on game day. But this is that game now. If you're Nebraska, I mentioned Dylan Rhule had to go win the game for you against Indiana, maybe a little bit too ambitious. I'm not saying Dylan Rhule has to go win you the football game against Ohio State with the spread what it is, but to give yourself a chance, you toss him the keys, you say, cut it loose, kid. I think a lot of us remember whenever we first got our license and you drove that car by yourself for the first time, a little bit weird, very much so empowering, but that has to be the moment here for Nebraska with Dylan Rhule. Cut it loose, kid. Here's the keys. We're going to go as you go. Nothing's on the line here. We're not supposed to win this football game. And I'm not saying they're apathetic by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think you got a 5-star quarterback in Dylan Rhule. If you're going to win, it's behind him. It's behind him. Up front, it'll be a tough task, both offensively and defensively for Nebraska. I think they'll be up for it, but this is the spot now where you say, Dylan Rhule, cut it loose. Brian Billick, coach of the Ravens a couple years ago, they used to do those America's Game documentaries that were I want to say 30 to 40 minute just docs, like I said, about a team's Super Bowl season. And Brian Billick has a great interview in that documentary where I forget who they're going to play. Maybe it was the AFC Championship game. I forget. But he has a great quote when talking to the media. He says, listen, when you go into the Lions Den, you don't tippy-toe in. You go in there screaming like a banshee and say, where is the son of a gun? He doesn't say gun, but you hear what I'm saying. That's the same thing for Nebraska here. You don't tippy-toe in. You don't say, okay, we'll try and run the football and take time off the clock, shorten the game. No, man. You saw what Oregon did. Bunch of NFL players in that secondary for Ohio State, but like, go after them, gosh dang it. Swing your sword. Rest in peace, Mike Leach. Like, go after them. Defensively, same thing. Let's throw the kitchen sink out there. Tony White, I think he's going to be a head coach next year. It's just my opinion. I think he's qualified to be a head coach next year, should he choose to be. Like, if you get beat defensively for Nebraska, just don't let it be the same way it happened against Indiana. Like, let's sell out for the run a little bit here. Sell out is obviously a relative term there. You don't want to totally just go engage at every play, but like, don't let it be by 6 yards a carry. Okay, Quinshon Judkins, a little bit dinged up. Travion Henderson going to carry the load. You'd have to believe. Again, I don't have any. Quinshon Judkins had a procedure on his hand. We'll say that much. Travion Henderson going to be a guy that you expect to see probably more carries if we're using common sense there. But if I'm Nebraska, I'm like, let's go make Will Howard prove it. Like, can he do it multiple games in a row? Again, I think if I'm Ohio State, I feel good about that. I like my chances if it's Will Howard. But like, if we can disrupt him, if we can be exotic, if we can, kind of speed up that internal shot clock, who knows? Who knows? 25.5 point spread. Again, what do you have to lose? Throw the kitchen sink. So here's the thing, though. In this game, we still do have to make a prediction. And even if you take away the run game, like let's say that Nebraska plays phenomenal, they do go the engage it kind of method when you play the college football 25 video game, and they do sell it to stop the run. Let's say they have success. You still then do have to win the battle on the perimeter. And with Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, it's tough for me to predict a situation where Nebraska wins that battle consistently enough to win the football game. It would require some havoc, right? It would require Will Howard to have a multi-interception game. It would have to require him missing on some, let's just call a spade here, makeable throws. That's tough to predict. It's tough to predict just havoc and anarchy, so we won't do that here. I think Nebraska actually battles a little bit in this game, especially early. I think that Matt Rhule will have this team ready to play. However, I do think Ohio State wins the football game. So we'll take Ohio State to win. 25.5 is a lot of points, dude. I get last week was last week if you're Nebraska, but I'll take Nebraska to cover that 25.5 on the road against Ohio State, even if it is backdoor.